Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett, who on weekends, Steve's nap time is his happy hour. He gets a 2-for-1 deal.
Oh, you can't say that.
I can say that. It's happy hour.
Shh.
Your nap, you take like lots of naps.
Oh, I love my naps. And Michelle Lewis, who will slash your tires and spit on your windshield if you park in her parking space at work.
You can't say that. Now,
It's true, though.
Now, yeah, don't park in my spot.
No, you
Do not park.
The wrath of Michelle if you park in her spot.
Anybody new that works in our office, I always, nice to meet you. My name is Michelle.
Don't park in my spot.
That is my spot. And you park there, I will cut you.
Yeah. And it's true. You will.
It is true. So coming up is Mother's Day.
I know.
Do you have a mother?
Day. I think so.
Yeah. You know what? That is one thing we all have in common.
That's true.
Every single one of us has a mother. And, you know, I saw this quote and I thought it was very fitting because behind all of your stories is always your mother's story because hers is where yours began.
Aww.
And so just to get a little dive deeping into Steve Mallett, I wanted
You just made up a word.
You just keep on.
Deeping?
Dive deeping. Deep diving.
Okay.
Dipping.
Yeah, okay. Shh, I'll be quiet.
Screw off, Steve Mallett.
I'm going to be quiet.
I want to know one of your favorite stories, childhood stories of your mom.
I have a good one. I think this would have been about 1976. We lived in London in a suburb called Ealing, and your phone just rang.
Hi, Cedric.
Yeah. Put it on silent.
Oh.
And it was cold. It was wintertime, January, February. And in our living room, there was a gas fireplace and we had never used it. And it was cold enough that the house wouldn't stay warm. So we thought we're all going to go light this fireplace. And so my dad and my sister and me were in there and we're fiddling with this thing and couldn't get it to light. And after 30 minutes, my mom comes in. She goes, "Give me that." And she grabs the lighter and she goes, "My mom had gas." And we were all we looked at her like, "Did you just say that?" And we just rolling on the floor. Your mom had gas. Grandma had gas.
Do you know how old your mom was when she had you?
Oh, she was very young. 21, 22.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's our daughter's age.
Yeah. I know. Well, it was pretty common back then, though.
Yeah.
It's not as common now.
My mom was 25.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a lot of people now are having kids when they're 30. The other thing about my mom, she didn't cook a lot of different things, but she cooked 3 things that I absolutely loved every time she
Chicken
made
and dumplings.
Chicken and dumplings. I have had chicken and dumplings all over the world, and I've never had them as good as my mom makes them.
Aww.
I've never, ever had them. And she made chicken curry and beef and peppers. And every time she made it, I'd come home, "Mom, what's for dinner?" And if she said one of those 3 things, I was like, yes. But what about you? What favorite memories from your mom?
You know, my mother's been gone 15 years now,
Yeah.
so I really hold a lot of those memories very close to my heart. Oh gosh, has it been 16 years? 17 years? 17 years this year. 2005. It'll be 17 years this year.
Wow.
But you know, if I had to look back to when I was a little kid, my mom was a single mom for a long time and we kind of had it rough. It wasn't easy growing up. But I guess one of my favorite memories of her is sitting on the couch and her rubbing my back or my ears or playing with my hair. And we would make these homemade nachos with Doritos, but it wasn't like nacho Doritos.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in the day, it was just like the triangle Doritos.
Yeah.
And we'd take little squares of Kraft cheese and put them on each one. And we'd sit there in our underwear and watch movies until I remember something horrifying. And I must have been like 2nd or 3rd grade. And this boy, my brother brought home this boy. He was younger than me. And the boy was in the same grade as me. And I'm sitting there in my underwear. And he made fun of me for it. Oh. And like one of those core memories, like I remembered and was like, "Ooh, I'm never going to do that again." Yeah. And my mom said, "Don't you let him stop our nacho movie night or whatever."
Nacho movie night. That's a great memory.
But now that, you know, since my mom's been gone so long and the majority of my kids' lives, it's I look for my mom in my kids, and I really see a lot of it in Kendall. Now, granted, my mother was a little bit shorter than me, blonde hair, blue eyes. So, didn't look like me at all. But she had this most beautiful long fingers, and
Really?
Kendall has those
That's
hands.
funny.
And so I remember holding my mom's hands in church when I was very little. And when I see Kendall's hands, it just reminds me of my mom. So
you just got a little choked
I
up.
did. It just, but we, like I said, we all have moms and being a mother myself and, my kids are, I used to tell my boys, like, I don't care if you're 6'4", I got one in the military and Logan's in the medical field. It's like, I'll still take you down.
Oh yeah. And they know that's true.
I will still take you down. But, you talked about, mothers are getting older and older. What made me think about this subject was Britney Spears, of all people, is pregnant at 40 years of age. Yeah.
Oh my god.
And she's still gyrating on Instagram, showing her belly. And I know, I was like, oh, bless sweetheart. Somebody tell her no.
Like some things are meant to be kept private to yourself and just enjoy, right?
Yeah, somebody
you don't need
know.
to show the whole world. But.
No, but with Mother's Day coming up also, I thought this was a super cool statistic I found, that the mom and the baby share cells not only during pregnancy, but these cells, and not like DNA, but these cells can last for up to decades.
Wow.
And they can stay in your blood and your tissues, like your pancreas, your liver. Some even have cells from your maternal grandmother. So, I had, since your mother had you at 22 years of age, you probably have cells, or at that time had cells from your maternal grandmother as well. And did you know that 4.3 babies are born every second in the world? 4.3.
No way.
Yeah. Then there's 2 billion moms worldwide, which also means that over their lifetime, they change about 7,300 diapers in their lifetime.
Yeah. By the time we got to Gracie, my last one, I was like, I never want to do this again.
Well, it's pretty soon they'll be changing your diapers, so that's how.
Please take me out before that happens.
That's okay.
But happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, and we hope instead of just Mother's Day once a year, that you get treated special all year long, because you are special.
That's right. And call your mom. Dang it.
Yes. Call your mom. Yes.
Call your mom.
I've got this week, actually in the last 2 weeks, my email and texts have been filled up with people asking me about property taxes.
Oh, yeah. I got mine, and that was kind of shocking.
I think everybody's been shocked this year. I've heard, well, yours went up a huge amount.
Oh,
right?
it was scary.
Yeah.
It was very scary.
Yeah. And most people know.
Like 300,000.
Yeah. But most people know your assessed value can go up on your homestead, but the tax amount can only go up 10%.
So I heard that you need to really check that value too, because some of them, you got to make sure that it's only 10%.
Yeah. Well, the thing about this that gets me, and I've mentioned this on the podcast a few times, people are focused on that assessed value. We really should be focusing on the rate. And I've pulled this from Glenn Hager, the Texas comptroller who establishes the rules about Texas property tax.
The tax rate?
Yeah, the tax rate. So here's what it says. Determining the tax rate. As a taxpayer, it is important for a property owner to understand how government spending affects the size of a tax bill. Changes in property values may affect a tax bill, but do not necessarily increase or decrease the total amount of taxes paid to a taxing unit. That unit is determined by the taxing unit's budget. So here's what's wrong with our system right now. What's supposed to happen is these taxing entities are supposed to come up with a budget, and then they're supposed to say, this is how much money we need.
So we need $10 million.
Right. We need $10 million. Okay. And everybody's values go up. And then they establish the rate based on how much that rate needs to be for them to collect $10 million. The way our system is working, and this is what you all should be upset about. You shouldn't be upset about your values going up. You should be upset that the way our system is working now, these taxing entities go, we need $10 million for a budget. But hey, we got $25 million in. We just need to figure out how to spend it. That's what needs to change.
Yeah.
We need to start figuring out what these budgets are, holding these people to account. How many of you know people that work for public agencies where at some point near the end of their fiscal year, they say, we have $1.2 million left in our budget. And our comptroller told us, you need to spend it or you won't get it next year. There's so much money being wasted. That's what you need to be upset about. Don't be upset that the values on your houses are going up.
When we're looking at those entities, who are we looking at? Because the school, our school taxes are an insane amount.
And some of that money goes out to other school districts that don't collect as much. Yeah.
So I'm all for kind of a flat tax especially for schools. Mm-hmm. I grew up and I used to do in my previous life, I did safety and security audits for public schools. Right. And so I've seen the poorest of the poor Texas schools and I've seen the richest of the rich. And it has always been very confusing to me how they're receiving this money and how they are spending this money.
Well, it kind of makes sense, right? If you've got some school district down in the valley and they can't collect enough money to run a good school, a district like Dripping Springs that has a huge tax base, some of that money gets set down or spread around. That kind of makes sense because you don't want just certain areas doing well.
No, not there being a deficit, but there's also a lot of grants that are available for those lower performing schools as well. Right. And I think that, as far as elementary school, and we do have this enrollment rates that are set. So with all of the influx of I'm just going to say it, the illegal aliens that are coming in through the border, I have family down there that it is overrunning that school system down there, just insanely overrunning.
Yeah.
And it's
and that's happening not only in school districts, that's happening in all kinds of
hospitals.
Yeah, hospitals and medical care and all that stuff is just being overrun with people that aren't contributing to the system, but they are using our resources. So do
you recommend us attending these school board meetings?
I would.
Talking to the commissioner?
Yeah, we need to understand how school bonds work. We need to understand what these budgets are. In this Texas property tax basics, they're talking about that they can vote for not raising the budget, and then the rate has to go down even though values go up. That's the conversation we need to have. There really shouldn't be anything wrong with our values going up. The rate should change though. And if I heard San Antonio drop their rate last year. It's ridiculous. It was and the property tax rates went down, and it went down, and it goes, the average homeowner is going to save $174 a year. Oh, give me a freaking
I'll
break.
Eat that at Carb tonight.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, there's, these tax rates need to go down I have rental properties in the last 5 years. The taxes have more than doubled. So
explain that to, I guess, the average listener that doesn't really kind of understand that as far as the investment property. So my homestead, it's capped, right?
It's capped. It can only go up 10%. I have a rental in Buda, and this year they're saying that the value went up 63%, and my taxes are going to go up 63% on my rental. Now, how do you think my tenant's going to take it if I go when she renews her lease and say, hey, you know what? By the way, my taxes more than doubled, and this $2,000 a month now, I've got to charge you $2,400. And that's what I have to do to make that work, right? I may not do that with her because I think that will put her in a bind, which means I'm going to eat that.
Yeah, you're going to have to eat it.
Yeah.
And there's also so much now that was changed 3 or 4 years ago where you can only write off, I think it's $10,000.
The salt tax, yeah.
That's hurt us. I think last year we paid almost $16,000 in property taxes. So, we'll never fully own our home.
The reason that was put into place was because we had these states run by politicians who were just, New Jersey, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, were just taxing people through the roof and telling them, yeah, but you get to write it off on your federal income tax. So basically what that is the federal income tax is supplementing the property taxes. Think about it that way, because the money doesn't go to the federal government. So that cap was put on there so that these states would not have the incentive to just keep taxing people to oblivion, which is happening. We're actually starting to see that now here in Texas, where people are saying, I may not be able to keep my house if these taxes keep going up
I know.
like this.
I mean, like,
it's a conversation people are having.
I think it's a conversation that a lot of people are having here in Dripping Springs. You know, they bought their home for $150,000 15, 20 years ago. They're comfortable there. This was their pine box house. They're not leaving, and the house is paid off. And now they're owing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're on fixed incomes. So something has got to be done.
Oh, I agree.
Because I think that is the most worrisome to me, of where we are losing our charm in this city. We're not state, but we're not protecting our citizens in that sense. Our senior citizens, the ones that are on fixed incomes.
The taxes should go up some incremental amount every year. They should not double. They should not go up 10%. There's just no reason for that. There's no way that the Hayes counties could say, we need twice as much money this year as we had last year. There's more people moving here. There's more houses. There's more money being dumped into that. There's no reason that budget should increase like that. We're going to have Walt Smith on. I don't know. He may actually have some insight into that.
He may cancel after this conversation.
But, and part of so interest rate, I know we're not a real estate show, but these are the topics of the day. Interest rates on mortgages have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 5.25%, 5.5% now on a 30-year fix. And
that's still not high.
It's still not high historically. But just recently, something we haven't talked about in years popped back up: adjustable rate mortgages.
So I don't really understand. I mean, I don't really
So
understand.
An adjustable rate mortgage, the reason that would be attractive is the last time these were big was right around when the last bust was, like 2009. So you can go and you can say, I'll take an adjustable rate mortgage and say it's fixed for 5 years. You can do them 5 years, 7 years, 10 years.
So I'm going to buy a $500,000 house, and the interest rate.
You're going to have a $400,000 mortgage, right? Okay. And your interest rate, if you do an adjustable rate mortgage or an ARM, you can, instead of 5.5, you can maybe get it at 4 3/8 or 4 7/8. And so initially your rate is a little lower than you pay for market rent. And you're taking the chance that at the end of the 5 years, if you have a five-year adjustable, that the rates will be lower. It's not smart right now for you to be banking on rates to be lower when there's so much pressure to move up rates, right? And so what ends up happening is, say at the end of the 5 years, if interest rates are 10%, your mortgage will go from 4 7/8 to 10%. And you can't refinance it, right? Because refinance rates are 10%. Oh. So you're stuck at 10%. You can get a 5, if it's in a market that's where the pressure is pushing up rates, lock in at 5.25 or 5.5. And then you won't have to worry about what the future is going to bring. You know what your mortgage payment's going to be.
Can you just buy points to?
You can still use points to buy it down. Yeah. But, adjustable rate mortgages got a lot of people back into trouble back the last time rates went up. I remember there were people that said, hey, my payment was $2,000 a month and now it's $3,200. I can't afford that. What are you going to do? You
think that's agents or mortgage companies trying to squeeze somebody in a house that they were just barely being able to qualify for?
It could be that, or, man, people really fixate on interest rates. You focus on the payment too. I bought a rental that I paid a little bit higher interest rate, but I really wanted it, and it ended up being a fantastic investment.
Do you escrow with all of your?
Not all of them. No. Some I do.
Todd doesn't. We don't, because Todd wants to physically go to the tax office and look the person in the eye. I'm surprised he doesn't pay in pennies. just hand it all to them.
Big old duffel bag full of penny rolls.
And then kind of point at him a little bit.
It's not their fault. They're just collecting it. But yeah, it should be the politicians that are establishing these rates. This is kind of a silly story, but I saw, do you ever look on Yahoo News?
Only when I have to log into Yahoo on a computer and not my phone, because I still have a Yahoo account.
Oh, yeah, do you? Yeah. You and I were talking about this. You can actually, the Biden administration through the Department of Energy just outlawed regular light bulbs, just regular incandescent light bulbs. You're not going to be able to buy them anymore starting January 1st, 2023.
So you're saying I should go stockpile on some regular light bulbs?
Yeah.
I'm going to have a little black market in Dripping Springs of light bulbs?
Yes, you should. And they did it in a weird way where it's not like they just outlawed that light bulb. They said, well, we want to save people money. And so light bulbs have to produce this much light for this much energy. And if they don't, then they're illegal. And we're going to save the American public $3 billion a year. Yeah, right. And remember when they were telling everybody, buy LEDs, they last 10 times as long.
Shit.
They are just as much as crap as the old ones, right? I'm buying just as many light bulbs, and they're 5 times as expensive.
They're the worst. Like Todd says that every time. These freaking light bulbs.
I know. Yeah, you're supposed to be like, this is the last time you'll ever replace that light bulb.
We actually replaced the entire house when we did that. And I think I told you this story before. It was one of the earlier light bulbs. Kendall came rushing down and she's like, Mom, my bathroom's on fire. And I was like, what? I rushed up there and there's smoke pouring out of the light fixture.
That was probably one of those, what are they? The twirly ones, the CFLs?
Honestly, I don't even remember, but we called the fire department. My kids tell the story a lot differently because this was summer and I used to make the kids do summer workbooks. And the kids said, kids, the fire department's on the way. Clean your rooms and grab your workbooks. That's how they tell the story. But they said it was from the light bulbs.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Well, so the reason I brought up Yahoo News when I did this is because it cracks me up how much bias there is in so-called news now. Oh. So at the end of this story, when it talks about these regular incandescent light bulbs being outlawed, it says, when the rules were rolled back under Trump, the Natural Resources Defense Council predicted that would increase emissions by the equivalent of 30 large power plants. So back when Trump was president, he removed that rule so that people could buy cheap incandescent bulbs again. Trump defended his opposition to more efficient bulbs in 2019 by noting that LED and compact fluorescent bulbs are more expensive, and they are, and incandescent bulbs, and complaining that the light cast by efficient bulbs is no good. I always look orange, he complained. That's the last line. They cannot stop themselves. Orange man bad.
No, he says, my bulbs are huge, big. I got big bulbs.
I love reading news stories where it is so obvious. There's like that whole story had nothing to do with Trump really, but they had to throw it in at the end.
I'm so sick of the hypocrisy. I'm so sick of it.
The news has gone so far downhill in the last 20 years.
Oh, 100%. So something a little bit more lighthearted. Let's talk about oak wilt.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's very light.
Dripping Springs is seeing some rampant oak wilt right now.
Is it popped back up?
It has popped back up. I know down Sawyer Ranch. I know a couple homes in High Point has some. We've seen it off of Fitzhugh and McGregor. In Texas, 65 counties have been affected. And oak wilt, the live oak tree, it can take as little as 2 months for the tree to die, but it can take...
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
The red oaks actually can die, I think, within 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
But usually it takes 3 to 6 months. And it's contagious when they root share. So when the roots... touch. Mm-hmm. And so when you get your roots or when you get your roots, I just got my roots treated yesterday. When you get your trees treated, there's some trenching and some injection of propofol, not the Michael Jackson, make them go 9 nights, sleep.
Gosh.
Propofol, I think is how you say it. But I was reading some of the restrictions throughout the counties, and I was having a really hard time finding the city of Dripping Springs restrictions. But for the most part, I read that you're not allowed to cut oak trees from February to July because you can spread it a lot quickly. In Johnson City, for instance, within 30 minutes of cutting, you need to spray it with that black coating stuff.
The reason that is because there's a little beetle that's attracted to the sap when you have a wound on a tree or you cut it. There's a little beetle that flies over there to feed on the sap. And then the oak wilt bacteria, I think it's a bacteria, gets on the feet of the beetle. And then that beetle flies to another tree that has an open wound and lands on that open wound. And that transmits the oak wilt onto the unaffected tree. So that's how they can get it through the root system.
Are they called whore beetles?
No, I think they're called
whore beetles.
Nididuli beetles or something. But they do get it through the root system, and you can actually, from aerial view, see it in neighborhoods as it progresses through the neighborhood. It's almost like a cloud in the trees as it moves forward. But the beetles can hop, so that beetle can go from one neighborhood and fly 5 miles away and infect another tree with an open wound. That's why you want to spray those open wounds.
I was looking at the leaves of an oak wilt and how they look different in the veining system. Yeah. San Antonio also has a restriction that any firewood that was cut from oak wilt trees is not allowed within the city limits.
That makes sense.
My in-laws, they live in Leon Springs. They live on an acre, and they lost all of their trees.
That's crazy.
And I mean, they've had that house for 30 something years, all of their trees. We have 30 something trees on our property. We're very worried. Actually, today, as a matter of fact, we have the oak wilt pros coming out to look at our trees, the neighbors, and the ones behind us, because our neighbor just lost a tree, but they didn't say it was oak wilt, not oak wilt,
well, there's
somebody
other things
else
that can kill oak trees.
So, and I always heard too from the arborists that we've had, and I may be totally wrong, but to get those trees cleaned out, get that ball moss out, because the ball moss can, on certain levels, if your tree is already stressed. It's
funny. I have heard many arborists say, no, the ball moss doesn't hurt them. But every tree you see infested with ball moss looks terrible. Yeah. It looks like it's so. I've had the trees on my property have had the ball moss removed, and they do way better. Yeah. They look better this year than they ever have.
Well, for resale value also, you want to umbrella those trees, get that ball moss out.
Well, and I was going to say, how many trees do you think you have on yours?
We have 30.
So if you lost all 30 of those oak trees on your property, you'd lose $100,000 in value on your property. And if you have a great big gigantic oak tree in your front yard and you lose it, you lose so much value on your property.
Well, the neighbors next door to us, they lost this beautiful, big, gorgeous tree. It's over 100 years old. It's very, very sad. Very, very sad.
It is. I always think about the things that those trees have seen.
So who do we have coming on today?
We have Chuck Lemmond.
Chucky.
Yes, Chucky Chooch. I'll tell you the story about that when he comes in. Yeah, he's been a friend of mine for almost 20 years. Great guy, owns Bear Creek Homes, and he's involved with Dripping Springs Hometown Missions. And we're going to visit with him, talk about our running days and what's going on. And when he moved, he's lived out here 40 years, so he's seen some changes.
Well, maybe he'll give me some juicy Mallett stories too.
He probably will. Yeah. So hang on, sit tight. We're going to get Chuck in here, and we'll be right back.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Steve will just go ahead and start.
Yep. Yeah, I just started.
Oh, well, you got to start.
Welcome to the show, Chucky.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you came on. I've been wanting to do this one since the very first days of the podcast. So.
I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. Tell us when you moved to Dripping. I know you lived in Austin for a long time.
Yeah, well, I first came to Texas in late 1981.
Where'd you move from?
Florida. Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. Look at that. Homestead. Around there. Did you live in Homestead?
So I lived very close to Homestead where Steve...
I lived in Homestead, yeah.
I know, but Homestead's nearby.
Well, I lived in Cutler Ridge, so that was right next door.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to drive through Cutler Ridge. You take your life in your hands when you drive through Cutler Ridge.
You know, all of Miami is sketchy, and back then it was super sketchy.
Sketchy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I thought I need to come to someplace more real.
How'd you pick out Austin?
Hippie.
I had never been to Texas, ever. Didn't know anything about Texas. Had the stereotype in my mind.
Tumbleweeds,
horses. Riding a horse, boots, all
sand,
that. Yeah. And I had, a Toyota pickup truck, a dirt bike, a pit bull, and whatever I could fit in the back of that. And two of my buddies, we said, let's go to Texas. That sounds like a good place to go. So we packed up, man, and came. And the first night we got here, we drove through Houston on Friday night at rush hour.
No.
And this was back in the days of CB radios. And I'm like, we are not stopping here.
What was your handle back then? Do you remember it?
No, I don't.
So you didn't have a destination? You just said Texas?
I'd never been here. I had no idea.
But you were sort of Austin bound at that point.
No, I had no.
Wow.
we went down to the coast to Palacios, and one of the guys, I came with 2 other guys in our trucks and our dogs, and we put all our stuff in storage and said, let's drive around the state and see what we see.
And just got on 10 and just drove.
We went to San Antonio, and it's like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Went to Dallas, Fort Worth. That was like, okay, too big. And came back down through Austin and saw the hills and saw the green. And it was like, oh yeah. So we went and got our stuff. And actually, this is a true story. We didn't have a home when we got here and lived either at Pedernales Falls State Park or McKinney Falls State Park. And we got jobs right away as carpenters.
Yeah.
And we would work all day, go out to eat somewhere, and then at night we'd go to the state parks. And I think the statute of limitations is expired on this, but the park would be closed, and we would just drive in and find an empty camp space and pitch our tent or lay in a sleeping bag, build a fire. And
that's all legal now. You can live anywhere now in Austin.
That's true.
You
could do all of that right down on Town Lake.
Yeah, you can live at Town Lake, or Lady Bird, whatever it's called now. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so we did that for a month or two while we looked for a place to live, and we found a house out off Fitzhugh Road and rented it, and it was perfect bachelor pad in the woods, big wood barrel hot tub out in the woods, and it was just fun. And that's
3 guys in a wood barrel hot tub.
Not all at one time, Michelle.
Wait, he's nodding.
So what year was that?
81.
81.
Yeah.
Wow. So the drive from Austin to get out there to that place on Fitzhugh Road probably felt like you drove out in the country for hours, right?
Yeah. So from Austin, we were building a restaurant on Lake Austin in Westlake Hills, and you had to buy your beer at the Y in Oak Hill,
That's
at
right.
Tom Thumb Page, because after that there was zero. But from Ben White, which used to be kind of a cloverleaf, and Lamar, there were no traffic lights. None.
Wow.
Like there was a flashing light at Brody, I remember, and a flashing light at the Y.
Wow.
And that was it. And it was.
You told me once that hotel, there's a little kind of
The Love Motel.
seedy hotel in Sunset Valley, right off the south side of 290. You told me once that it used to be a drive out in the country to get to
That's the Love Motel. That's what it's called, the Love Motel.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
No, it's the name of it. My kid's pediatrician, her family owned all of that property on Brody, all that farm property where the La Madeleine and I guess it's
that barn
Longhorn.
that's a wedding venue.
Yeah, that was her family's property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so you've been in Dripping ever since.
No.
You moved. Did you go?
I went to Dallas for a couple of years.
Okay.
And that was just a tough deal.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. But I went for work, and there was good work, and ran a concrete foundation company, and it was great. And then I don't know if you remember back in 1987, probably not. There was a savings and loan crash in Texas.
And
the
I don't remember that, but I know about it.
So the building economy went from 100 miles an hour to zero, like overnight practically.
Wow.
And so I had a little company, and we lost everything because there was no work and lots of debt. So I went back to Florida for 4 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And had a great job.
Back to Miami where you came from?
No. A little bit farther north, a place called Jupiter, which, was
on the beach.
Good for me. It was on the beach. Yeah. That was back in my triathlon days and bike riding days and stuff like that. So it was a great environment for that because it was year round. But always wanted to come back to Texas, and came back here in 92. And
was that so you could work for Newmark?
I took a job with them. I had applied with several builders in Austin. I had applied with a big builder in Atlanta and got offered a job, and then went to Atlanta to interview, and I was like, yeah, no, this is.
Do you remember what it used to look like, even applying for jobs, like without the internet? You'd probably open the newspaper or some trade magazine and
Yeah, I mean, I would just go to people's places and here's my resume and here's this, and can I talk to somebody? And sometimes you could, like right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like that now.
Mm-mm.
And then, so 92, you moved back to Austin.
Yeah.
And then, so when did you finally end up in Dripping Springs?
So we bought property off Nutty Brown Road in the late 90s and moved into our house, built the house where we live currently, moved in early June of 2000. So we've been there almost 22 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That house has held up really well for being 22 years old.
Well, he's a builder.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, he knows how to take care of
Who
it.
built your house?
Yeah.
How long have you been married to Tracy?
It'll be 25 years in about 4 weeks.
And you have
Congratulations.
what's your anniversary date?
Flag Day.
Flag Day, June
14th. Yeah.
Mine is May 22nd. Will be 29 years for me. And you have 2 children?
We do. One's graduated from Texas State about a year ago, and she works in South Austin and lives in South Austin. And, we get to see her periodically. And the younger one is a junior at UT in mechanical engineering.
Good for her.
And she's a brain and doing great.
And she fell in love with that through the robotics program at the high school, right?
Yeah, the robotics program at DRIP was significant, and there were a lot of great mentors, really good leadership with that. And if you've never been to a robotics competition, it is like nerd world times 5 million. But they are such good kids, and and it's just the whole and the parents who mentor them and teach them how to do this stuff. It's my hat's off to all those folks. They're great.
Well, kudos to DSHS too.
Yeah, no kidding. How did you first get in construction way back in the Florida days? What drew you to construction?
Yeah, so I was in college up in the Northeast, and economics, political science, sitting in class, and I'd be like looking around like, I hate this, and like, wow, I wonder how that crown molding got put up. Seriously, really? And so about halfway through my undergraduate career, I was like, this is not working. And I told my folks, this is not working. And they're like, you're not coming home.
Ooh.
And that was in the Northeast. It was in the winter. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going someplace warm, and just headed south.
So is that where you grew up in the Northeast?
I did in Northeast Pennsylvania up in the mountains. Yeah. Yeah.
And your dad was a state senator?
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he do that his whole life?
No, he was an attorney and then, a judge for a number of years, and then got elected as a state senator.
How long was he a state senator?
Over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you had politics in your blood. So you were kind of just following what you thought you were supposed to be doing, and your calling was to look up. God told you to look up.
I was following what they told me to do, and then I was just like, not working for me. And there were other plans. There were greater plans for me, and I followed them.
Yeah.
Well, and you've kind of sat here and showed us a little about your other plans. So you own Bear Creek Homes.
I do.
How long have you been doing that?
Since 2004.
So 92 to 2004, you did Newmark. Is that right?
Mostly, yes. And they, great company. They used to be just sort of a regional builder, and then they got publicly held. And then, after that, the wheels fall off of stuff.
But they're back, aren't they?
They are back, and just way different ownership, way different thing. But some good folks, bought the name, and they're building good stuff.
And then you started Bear Creek Homes in 2004. And what made you want to do that?
Two things. One was the kids. So I had a great job there. It was a fabulous job.
You actually met Tracy there, right?
I did. She was the marketing director, and I was the VP of purchasing.
Yeah.
And so,
little inner office romance.
Not for a long time. I wasn't a cowboy. She liked cowboys. But so that was a great career, but I never saw the kids. I would drive to work with my headlights on, drive home with my headlights on, just in time to tuck them in. And I'm like, this is not the way to be a dad and, or a husband.
Yeah.
So, so I thought, okay, I'm just going to do this thing and see where it goes, and keep it small, intentionally small, intentionally local, not, I didn't have delusions of grandeur, just be local.
Yeah. I think so. I met you in like 2005, 2006.
I was just going to ask, when did Mallett enter your world?
We met at church.
Dun dun dun.
We met at church at the Methodist Church. And our kids were in the same Sunday school class, and so that was good stuff.
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember. I guess it was about 2006. You called me. You were building a spec house off of Nutty Brown Road in Friendship Ranch.
Oh yeah.
And you invited me over there to take a look at it. And I don't think you had, I can't remember now. It was about halfway done or something. And you were telling me what it was going to be. And I was not as confident in selling it and it being sold as you were. But you knocked it out of the park on that thing, didn't you? That was one of the best specs you ever did.
It was the biggest spec I ever did. And it was, I signed a personal guarantee for $500,000 to build the thing. And back in those days,
you couldn't fail. It had to work.
Yeah. And I had a vision for that house and that property, and it turned out great. And actually, that house sold a few years ago, and the folks who bought it hired me to reimagine a few parts of the
Full
house.
circle there.
Add on to the guest house. And so I've been back, and I love that house.
It's a cool house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet people have seen it and don't even know that that's the house because it's perched up kind of on the hill there on Nutty Brown, and it kind of catches your attention tucked in the trees. It's a cool place.
Yep.
Yeah. So the construction business, Bear Creek Homes, I know you've done really well with that. What's your favorite part about being a builder?
So that's changed. It started out just really enjoying custom homes. I kind of got forced into remodeling with one of my neighbors who wouldn't take no for an answer. And then I thought, wow, that was kind of cool. So we've branched out, done whole house renovations, remodels, custom homes as far as Burnett, Blanco, but we try to stay local. And then the last few years, a little bit more commercial style stuff. So like at the Burke Center for Youth over in Driftwood.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I built a 30-bedroom dormitory for them.
Oh, wow.
Big building, beautiful. Just finishing up a barn dominium for their equine therapy program and a couple other things. So it's kind of neat to get away from just the day-to-day, residential thing. And in this time of supply chain meltdowns, to not have to explain every day to somebody like, we thought this was coming today, but it's still another month or something. And it's hard to.
Is that your least favorite thing about the building business right now, is dealing with the shortages?
I've had conversations with two different builders in the past couple of days, and both of them say the same story that I tell. And it's so hard to know what you're going to do the next day. Even my own house, I'm remodeling the master bathroom right now, and the tile guys are like, oh yeah, we thought we'd be there tomorrow, but we'll be there next week.
Oh.
And it's okay. Meanwhile, we're sleeping in the kids' beds in the other rooms, and the house is a mess. And
I'm not a patient person while my house is going through a remodel, but I'm probably.
Well, these days,
I thought you were just going to say, I'm not a patient person.
Period.
Full stop.
Period. Chuck, I have to say that I admire you so much in the sense that you really do put your money where your mouth is, and you put a lot of volunteer hours in community projects throughout Dripping Springs. A lot of people don't really know that you are one of many, but you are one that do this home in a month. And
Dripping Springs Hometown Missions does the home in a month.
And so, what has led your heart to go, instead of just profit driven and money, what has led your heart to reach out to your community and kind of give where you live?
Yeah, that is a huge part of my life right now. And right now I feel like I run the business and build stuff to fund my time equity and my time tithe, maybe is a better way to say it, to DS Hometown Missions. And that started by accident about 11 years ago. And I just, from the church, got a call, hey, lady's got a frozen pipe at her trailer. Would you go look at it? And I was kind of the go-to guy for, hey, would you go look at this train wreck and see if you can get it back on the tracks?
That's why you never give Skinner your cell phone number.
Yeah. Well, So anyway, I went and I had one of my daughters in the truck, Kendrick. She was 7 at the time, and I would take them along with me because I wanted them to see what we were experiencing in this town that most people are oblivious to, quite honestly. And we pulled up, and there was this like rabid dog barking at this mobile home, and I was like, "You stay in the truck and lock the door."
Yeah.
And I went and knocked on the door, and it opened a little crack, and I said, "I'm here to look at your pipe." And this voice says, "Well, it's under the trailer." And I'm like, "Of course it is." Of course, on a cold January day, I want to crawl under a mobile home.
At least it wasn't a warm, moist day with something.
Well, anyway, so I had a bad attitude. I crawled under. I saw the broken pipe. I'm like, okay, I can't fix this. I'll get a plumber. So I knocked back on the door. I'm like, okay, I'll get a plumber here on Monday. And, is there anything else you need? And, the door was only open a little crack, and then the door opened some more. And she said, "Well, could you fix this?" And pointed inside the trailer, and I could see daylight. And she's holding an infant that's just a few months old, and there are 4 little kids like hiding behind her. Oh. And I walked into the trailer, and part of it was burned out, part of it was open. It was a disaster.
There was like a hole in the floor in one section, wasn't
there?
No, was that a different one?
No, that was a different one. Yeah, there's several that had holes in the floor with animals coming in and out freely that we've worked on. But anyway, I looked at this woman, and she goes, "Do you think you can help me fix this?" And I looked around, and I'm like, "I can't fix this." And I said, "No, I can't, but I'll get you a new house. How about that? Would that be okay?" And I said those words. The words came out of my mouth, and I'm like, okay, I didn't just say that out loud. And she looked at me. She's known me for 2 minutes, maybe. I don't even know her name. And I gave her a new house, or I said I'd give her a new house. And she goes, "Well, my husband and I were working on this, but he was killed in a wreck at 290 and 12 a few months ago, and I don't know what to do." So wow. I said, "Well, I'll get back with you. I'll get your pipe fixed, and then I'll get back with you." And I got in the truck, and I looked at Kendrick, and I'm like, I think I just told that lady I'd give her a new house. Ooh. And I drove away. And for 2 days, I thought, man, she doesn't know who I am. I'll just fix her pipe, and it'll be okay. I'm not going to give her a new. How can I give her a new house? And then I thought about it. I'm like, I can't let them live there. So I took my email address book and emailed everybody that I knew in DRIP and said, "Okay, look, we're going to meet, and I'm going to tell you this story, but here's the basics. This is not acceptable." And 40 people showed up on a dark and stormy night in January at the Methodist Church. I mean,
I was there.
County commissioner. I mean, there were a lot of people who showed up that I wouldn't have expected. And we talked about it, and we agreed we were going to do something. And 3 months later, we had raised $25,000. Alan Graham from Mobile Loaves and Fishes had a connection to buy us a FEMA trailer for cheap, brand new.
He's an amazing man.
He's one of my top 3 heroes in my life.
I met him when I was at Riverbend Church. He's an amazing man.
Yeah, he's super. Well, he helped us get this brand new FEMA trailer. Was sitting in a field like in Louisiana, waiting for a hurricane, and got it trucked in. And in one weekend, we demolished the old trailer, put it in dumpsters, hauled it away, brought the new one in the next day, set it up. And the next weekend we had, 50 people out there building decks and connecting it. And then they moved in. And those kids, we've watched them grow up. We've been to their quinceañeras. We've been to their high school graduations, helped some of them get jobs, helped. So it's a relationship thing.
You said that, you work with these families before we went on air. You talked about how you work with them from the beginning to the end. So this is you're in a relationship with them. You're in it to win it. So you're not just going and fixing a pipe or presenting a new home to them and just dropping them off and saying good luck with that, congratulations, and patting ourselves on the back. You were invested in these people, and I think there's a lot, especially new people in Dripping Springs, don't understand that we have a whole subsect of poverty-stricken people here in Dripping Springs.
Well, I was going to say that this first trailer that you replaced for this lady, how close was that to downtown Dripping?
So, it was on 12, just past Spring Lake, so a mile north, and it was there was a whole little community there of folks who we pump gas next to at the gas station, that we push our cart past at HEB, but they're invisible. And they're hiding in plain sight almost. And so as Dripping grows more affluent and exponentially, these folks are
being pushed out.
Yeah. And so our initial goal with this first family was, let's keep these folks in Drip. Let's fix their house so that they don't have to go somewhere else, that they can keep their kids in DSISD, where they stand a much better chance than going to some big, huge school district.
And get lost.
Yeah. And we think that, at least with this first family and several others, that we were pretty successful in keeping them in Drip. And so now, as we've grown, we're a 501c3 nonprofit and have been for many, many years. But as we've grown, we've gotten to know the community, and word is out, and we are committed to improving housing for families who don't have the means to do it themselves.
So how does this process start if there is a family that is in dire need? How do you find out about these families? And I know you can't help everyone.
No.
But how do you help one?
So, word gets around.
Yeah.
You learn about folks who are in a bad situation, or they see what we've done somewhere else and say, hey, we've got some issues here. Can you come talk to us? And we do. And we've had to get an interview process down with the board of directors. And, I used to go by myself, and I'd show up at like, hey, what's the matter?
And here's Chuck. I'll give you a house and you a house and you a house.
Well,
I had to rein Chuck in a little bit.
I have been reprimanded by the board. I have a $500 allowance. I'm not allowed to promise more than that by myself. But,
and so then out of all of this, and you've told me some of the stories over the years, and I love hearing them all, that you had some guy like try and chase you off his property with a shotgun when you were tearing down his trailer to give him a new one, things like that.
Yeah.
But through this whole process and over the 11 years, you've come to this home in a month.
Right.
Which you just did when did you finish that?
October of last year. Yeah.
And just tell us, kind of give us an overview of what that was.
So we've torn down some stuff and always maybe brought in a mobile home or something like that, or done some major fixing on a couple things. And this one, we didn't have access to a mobile home, and it was zoned single family residential. Right. So we just kind of came up. I'm like, well, we can't fix this because it's too moldy inside to send volunteers in. And we can't put a mobile home because the city won't allow it, even though we did that once and it was a big fight. So what are we going to do? And I said, well, let's just build a house. And there's this group called Home in a Week. That's a local, kind of regional group. And they pre-build a bunch of stuff, and then they truck it all down to the valley to a colonia, and they build a house in a week. And I've been down there, and it's phenomenal. I mean, after 6 or 7 days, they're handing keys to a house. Wow. Now, it doesn't have central air. It doesn't have a lot of stuff. And
that's the same thing you and me and Colton, I think Gretchen and Kendrick did down in the valley, right on the other side of the border. But it was like 3 days we did that, right?
No, we went down with the kids and built these little homes.
Okay. This is something more than that.
Well, yeah, this is plumbing, electrical,
really? Okay,
shingles, sheetrock, vinyl floors. Yeah, the deal we did, Steve went to Mexico with us and built.
Is that Progresso?
Home. Yeah.
I actually grew up the town right next to Progresso, which is Weslaco. So I'm very familiar with the barrios of the valley.
That was an eye opener for me. I've lived in Europe in some poor countries, and when we drove over the border and drove through that, what's it called? Colonia. There were houses made with pallets and visqueen plastic. Yeah. And I remember there was this house made with pallets, and there was like a 70-year-old lady out front with a broom sweeping the dirt at her
I've been
house.
to many of friends' grandparents' houses that were like that. And for me to tell my children that when I was a kid, I I would go play at a friend's house and I was still using an outhouse, or they would have a well to pump water. They didn't have running water. I'm very familiar with that, and the poverty and the sadness, and but you're providing these people of Dripping Springs a hand up, not a handout.
Did you read that somewhere on our website?
No, I didn't.
That's totally what we're all about. We're a hand up. We want those people to be our peers. We want their kids to have hope. Okay, so that's the word. To give folks hope who maybe didn't have hope. And there are a lot of stories to tell about the projects that have been done in this area. There are just a lot more to do, but we want to sustain folks here, and this is how we do it.
Drive them out with high taxes and high prices, and
so if somebody
makes up the character of our town
wants to, they're hearing this story, this very compelling story, and this kind of underbelly of a population that lives here in Dripping Springs, like you said, they're hiding in plain sight. How do they donate? How do they volunteer their time? And I'm sure, like I said earlier, you are putting your money where your mouth is. You're not just writing a check. You're out there, blisters and bleeding. And
actually, I go to lunch with Chuck on a pretty regular basis, and when I hear what he's doing, it makes me tired. I just sit there listening. I go, man, just hearing that makes me tired.
So where can they donate?
Yeah. So, what is a donation is the first question that I'll answer in two parts. But one, money or time and gifts and talent. Hometownmissions.org.
Hometownmissions.org.
Yeah,
okay.
That's pretty simple. Hometownmissions.org. There's a lot of information there. There's like how to volunteer, how to donate, a lot of stories that we've done in the past, and all of them are, just local. The other part, money is important. That's what's going to drive us and allow us to grow, because we have a vision for the next 10 years to grow exponentially. But the biggest thing from the Home in a Month that we did, our first one last year, was coming out of COVID. We've all been isolated. We're all mad at each other because, politically or whatever.
Mask or whatever else.
Any of that, vaccinated, not vaccinated, everybody is just angry. So what happened was amazing. The community came out because everybody wanted to get out and do something, right? So we had these pre-builds in parking lots where we would build the walls or the trusses, and people would just come, and nobody knew anybody, and nobody, and the weekends that we would build, there would be 100 people sometimes with chainsaws or hammers or rakes or whatever. And it built community. And that was the coolest part. It's wonderful that we gave somebody a house. They're, safe and secure and warm or cool or whatever they want. But the fact that the Dripping Springs community came out and participated, and I think everybody had a good time.
I bet they did. And they invested in their community, right?
Yeah,
they became a bigger part of their community.
And the coolest part is, like, moms or dads would bring their high school kid out. And the kids are like, their jaw drops. They're like, what?
Yeah.
And you got to see that. There's too much isolation in nice places, and you have to
in
be
your
exposed.
Nice little gated community with your amenity center, and you're looking at the bare essentials of your time, your treasures, and your talent.
And I'll go back to it. It blows my mind. You can drive by $1 million house, and you drive down a little dirt road, and there'll be a falling down trailer 300 yards away.
Yeah,
that's what we have.
So this is the way to help out here in Dripping Springs. It's organized, and it's been around.
Yeah. So let me say, it's been around for almost 12 years, but let me say that we consider ourselves like the heavy lifters. There are some other great groups in Drip that will do smaller projects. But like, we just finished a bathroom renovation for a fella who's had both his legs amputated and couldn't even get in his bathroom in the wheelchair.
Jeez.
So we gutted the whole thing and totally redid it to ADA specs and gave it to him for free. And they don't live in a bad section of town, and you wouldn't know it to drive by their place. But they had a problem, and we stepped up, and a bathroom renovation is $40,000.
Yeah.
So, it takes
I wanted to
heavy
talk
lifting.
real quick 'cause before we started recording. You were telling us that somebody's got a fallen down mobile home, and the tax assessment, the tax value is very low, and you guys build them a house, and the county's probably going to raise the value. That you guys don't just say, "Here's your pretty house," and throw them the keys and walk off. You build a relationship with them. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the relationship is as important as whatever product we build for them or deliver or remodel or add on to. They need counseling. They need financial counseling. They need to understand the homestead exemption. They need help with filing tax protests because, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But we have had to make them aware that, we're going to do this, but there's a cost involved, and we'll help you as much as we can. And we'll guide you and hold your hand through this or any other thing that you need help with. We have a lot of smart, talented people with a lot of, we have an insurance agent on the board. We have a former CPS person on the board who's got radar like you can't believe. Yeah. Mortgage guy, just a lot of people who have a banker, like different folks who have talents that can directly, face to face, sit down with these folks and help them out.
That's awesome. And the house you built in House in a Month over there off of Ramirez was beautiful. You showed us some pictures. Gorgeous. I think most people would be proud to live. I think everybody would be proud to live in a house like that. It came out really nice in a month.
Yeah.
I have an unusual question for you. So you have, your skill set is amazing, exponentially amazing. Can you name a useless skill you have?
Wow.
Can you roll your tongue? Can you, it's like something just useless that
juggle.
Juggle. Yeah. Can you juggle? Can you
cheat at cards?
Man, that's a hard question. I don't know how to answer that. So I'm sure I have. You could call Tracy and ask her. She would probably have a list.
I'll phone the wife. Maybe we need a lifesaver, like a call.
Yeah. I wanted to tell a story about you, Chuck, that a lot of people might not know. I think it was 2006. I was playing softball with the Methodist men, and I was the worst player on the field.
I believe it.
And you and me and David Skinner were standing. It was at the Wild Game dinner, and we were behind the stage for some reason, and we were talking, and I was saying how I sucked at softball. And the three of us just said, "Well, I ran in high school." And I said, "Well, I did triathlons." And we said, "We should start a running group." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And we started running at the soccer park. And the very first run we did, we were going to do 2 laps, which is 2 miles. And we ran 1 lap and walked a lap because we couldn't do 2 laps. And about 6 months into that, we were up to maybe 3 miles. I know the exact place we were on the north end of the soccer park there. We're running along, and Chuck goes, "I know what I'm doing for my 50th birthday. I'm going to run a 50K. And I went, "That's like 32 miles. And he, "Yep, that's what I'm doing." And he did it. Like 6 months later, he went out and did it.
Wow.
I couldn't even fathom it at the time.
You shamed Steve back into running?
So what happened was I just said, I got to do something for my 50th birthday to prove that I'm not really 50. And so I was reading a magazine, and it said 50K on my birth date at Palo Duro Canyon.
Oh.
And so I thought, why can't I do that? And I had done, a few marathons and stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to do this and train for it. And Steve went with me, and he didn't.
I did the 25K, which almost killed me at the time.
Right.
And when I finished, I was done. And Chuck, it was a loop course, and Chuck came in and had to go out and do one more lap. And I was done at one lap.
8 hours. It took me 8 hours to run that thing. It was the hardest thing because I thought, and I trained on flat stuff. And then that canyon is not flat, and it was rocky.
Was there crying involved?
There was wailing and gnashing of teeth. I mean, there were points where you're like the only person, you can't see anybody, and you're out in the middle of the desert, and it's like, I don't know where I am, and you're hallucinating and you're dehydrated.
That leads me to another question I had for you is what activity that you do that makes you lose track of time? And is it that, or are you very aware of your time?
No. So running has always been a thing. And the past couple of years I had to give it up because I have a knee that's not happy with me anymore. So I've switched to 100% cycling. And just to get out on the bike, like on Creek Road, and just ride west of Dripping is so, it's still country. It's still, old Dripping out there. There's still, big trucks that go by and give you a little scare, but
or Michelle driving by. we were just talking about that on the last podcast about the bicycle accident that happened out on Creek Road.
Yeah,
and
that's not good.
It can get a little scary as the population grows. Those little country roads where you can peacefully ride your bicycle are becoming few and far between.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be you could put in at Fitzhugh and 290 and ride your bike, and a few cars would pass you. Now that's like life-threatening.
And a lot of times they're going 60 miles an hour when they pass you on a road that they should be going 30.
Or you get a shovel swung at your head.
Yeah. And you've also picked up a passion for driving your car out at you've driven it at Coda.
I've driven it at Coda, and there's a track in San Marcos. Yeah, I for my 60th birthday, I bought myself a midlife crisis Corvette, and
bright red Corvette,
and I've had so much fun.
My son
tracking it.
Just bought an '88 Corvette. He's 26, and he loves that stupid thing. And I was a junior in high school when that car was brand new, so. Logan loves the Coda thing. He would love to be able to watch this. And didn't Steve, were you guys both out there where y'all were doing the flags?
Flagging.
Was that with?
Yeah, Chuck was the one that got me set up with that.
What was it? Where'd you go? The flagging?
I was a flagger at Coda.
Yeah.
For some reason she laughs when I say that. Flagger.
She's twisting that word around.
If he says it enough, I can get him to say it.
And projects you're working on now. Now you got a big project going on in Dripping Springs on South Ranch Road 12, right? Tell us about that.
So a couple years ago, we bought a couple acres, and we've just gotten through the whole city with our site development permit. And we're about to build 6 little modern farmhouse office buildings. And it's exactly what it's zoned for. It's exactly what the city wants. We're not taking out any big trees. We're fitting in amongst it, and it's really exciting to be able to do something like that for Dripping rather than strip mining a big site. Nothing against the commercial stuff, because we all need it, want it, use it, but this is more just for folks who need an insurance office or something, or
I've seen renderings. It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, it's going to be nice.
Yeah.
We're
Have
excited.
a little brick and mortar.
Yeah, but you keep in a lot of the really pretty trees out there. All of them. Yeah.
We designed around the
trees.
Good
location too, right there, like right across from Calaterra.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, Michelle probably wanted to ask if you have any stories about me. Weren't you going to ask?
Oh
me
yeah,
about that?
Do you have any like juicy stories of Steve? Just like really good ones that I can use later. That I can. Because you know how kind I am.
I think he probably has too many. Honestly.
Yeah, probably not ones that I want to have recorded, but
Oh, go right ahead. We'll edit it out. Wink, wink.
Steve and I have been friends for a long time, and we've done a lot of stuff together. Mm-hmm. We've traveled a lot of places. Our families would, go snow skiing and stuff like that. And I will say, back in the days when we used to run at Founders Park, there was a lot of political discussion on those runs, and we would start, in the dark. I mean, we'd be running with little headlamps on, and he and I'll just say we were not on the same page. And politically. And it got to the point where I'm like, man, I don't want to be friends with this guy. I just can't do it. And then I'm like, but I really like this guy. He's a good guy. I'm just not going to talk about politics anymore. And
it's funny because you just told me that story recently, and that was I had a big aha moment when you told me that story, because I think there's not enough people doing that anymore. They're like, screw that guy. He doesn't agree with me. I'm not going to talk to them. Or screw that lady. I'm not going to talk to them. And there's not enough of people doing what you did at that point, because we become really good friends after that.
But you probably still have.
And I know that you don't agree with me politically, and vice versa, but we get along great.
You probably still have underlying political conversations. But my opinion of that, for my personal opinion, is that I like to be around people that don't necessarily agree with me on everything, because it helps me grow.
Sure.
I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to be pond water. I want to hear your side, and my beliefs and my stances on things are because of my experiences, and vice versa. And maybe you experienced something that is going to open my eyes and go, I never really thought about it that way. I've always experienced it from my eyes, from the way I grew up, the way I lived, the way I believed, the way I raised my children. And you can come at me with a totally different experience that I never thought of.
Yeah,
So,
I always appreciate that too. No.
and I think that's getting lost in this world right now.
It is. And that's why, just going back to hometown missions, just getting people to go, pound a nail or sweat together for a couple hours. It reminds us that we don't have to, not be friends just because, we see things a little bit
Just
differently.
because somebody votes a different letter than you do.
That's
Yeah,
one
we
of the
don't
reasons.
care.
That's one of the reasons we want to do this podcast, because if you know somebody more intimately, about your time when you moved here and meeting your wife and all that, you're going to treat that person more civilly than you would if they're just somebody that you don't like in town because they posted something on Facebook.
And you know what, Chuck, I don't know if this is politically correct or not, but I really think that you lead with the heart of Jesus and you practice what you preach. And I'm very honored to know you and get to know your story too. And I hope that the people that listen to this donate and pay attention. And even if they can donate a weekend or, $100 or, something like that, you're going to help, you're going to make your community better. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. You are. And I want to know one last question for you. What do you see in your future? What's next for you?
So I've been building for a long time, and, that has a shelf life that's maybe going to expire in a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to travel. I see myself, this is, like bucket list kind of thing.
You're going to go full circle, aren't you?
So
He's gonna go back to Miami.
I'm going to get back in the truck with the dog, throw my tool belt in the back, and I'm going to drive around the country and fix things and, just hang out with people. I would love that. Now it would be a Sprinter van. It'd be a little bit nicer, all
With
outfitted.
some AC.
With some AC.
Maybe a little toilet in the back.
Drag the Corvette behind it and the bike, and
There you go.
So on the weekends have fun, and then during the week just serve. I just want to serve. That's it.
Well, when you get to that point, you'll deserve it, because you have worked hard for the people in this community. And it always amazes me how you do this stuff, and there's nobody like tooting your horn, especially not you. You don't toot your own horn. You just go out and do it just with a servant's heart.
And you're
It's
a really good
impressive.
guy. The fact that you've been friends with Steve this long, you're a good guy.
Yeah. I think there was probably a few more times where he went, "Why am I friends with this guy?"
People pay me.
Yeah.
There's pay.
I owe you a check before you walk out the door.
Well, thanks for coming in, Chuck. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
And
All right.
please don't forget, hometownmissions.org is where you can go to donate your time, treasures, or your talents.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Chuck.
Our pleasure.
Yep.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Thanks for listening.
If you have comments or feedback, please email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mallett and Michelle.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
Please follow us and leave a review.
Thanks again for listening.